Hey, welcome to the Summit Host Hangout podcast, where you'll learn how to host a high converting virtual summit that leads to your biggest signature offer launch yet. I'm your host, Krista from Summit in a Box, and I have an episode that I am really excited about today because as I was outlining these questions, I was like, this is just going to be a next level episode of just like a more unique way of thinking. It's not the like cookie cutter strategies and stuff we're used to hearing. This you're going to hear from people today who have run multiple businesses, online, offline, all kinds of industries, and that experience is like so helpful for those of us who started in the online world and that's the only place we've been. So to give you some background information on our guests, Paul and Melissa Pruitt are the husband and wife team behind the Adaptive Marketing Program, and they're the co-hosts of the Online Marketing Podcast. Together, they've built 3 different 7-figure businesses and have been top affiliates in some of the biggest launches in the online marketing space. Paul actually ran an 8-figure real estate business and then a successful photography business, was a contributing writer for entrepreneur.com, while Melissa is a published author whose book became an Amazon bestseller and led to her speaking at TEDx Wilmington. These days, they help online entrepreneurs stop attracting freebie seekers and start converting real buyers by aligning their audience, messaging, and offers. And their approach isn't about like chasing the latest marketing trends. It's about creating sustainable, profitable businesses that actually work for the people running them. And I mean, that just sounds great to me. So without further ado, let's dive in and talk with Paul and Melissa. Welcome, you two.
Thank you. Now, if we can just bring you around with us all the time and do that type of intro, that would be awesome.
I'll just introduce you everywhere. Seriously, everyone listening, as I wrote this intro, and I was like, I need to like fact check all of this stuff with them because these are some big claims that not many in the online business space can make. And I think it's just so awesome and impressive. I had to list it all out. So man, so good. And I know there's more we didn't even get to hear about. But I do want to talk a little bit more about your journey. You two have built 3 7-figure businesses together. What would you say is like the thread that connects all of those successes? And also, how did that lead you to focus on helping other entrepreneurs with their marketing?
Yeah. You want
I think one of the biggest, overall theme is for us, it's really all about connecting with our people, that connection piece, and really having, real life conversations with people, meeting people with where they're at with all of our businesses. I mean, yes, there's tons of different marketing strategies that we do, and we can talk and jam on all like the fun whiz bang things. And, but at the end of the day, it's all about really connecting people with where they're at, going deeper with them. One of the things that we say inside of our own coaching program is we like to go deeper with fewer people. So we really like to get to know people. We like to get to know what's going on in their business, but also like what's going on in their life and helping them really build a business that makes sense for them. Because one business for one person is going to look totally different depending on their life circumstances. And we've carried that thread throughout every business that we've built.
Yeah, and if I can follow up on that, the going deeper with fewer is more than just a little, tagline. We're in a world now that AI is taking over. Everybody's trying to figure out how to game the social media. Everybody's seeking, how many followers can I get? How many views can I get? How many subscribers can I get? And the interesting thing is consumers, you hear this thing that's trending now. This is like the trust economy is eroding and blah, 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 right? And it's like really interesting because as a consumer, we don't want to talk to AI. As a consumer, we don't want to be feeling like a number. We don't want all these things. But then as a producer, like us being business owners, we want the convenient, the high, volume method so that we don't have to work type thing. So when the entire world is zigging, we typically zag. And we go in high touch instead of just high tech. And when you do that, people are seen, they're heard, they have a 2-way conversation instead of sitting in a program, crossing their fingers, hoping and praying that they're the chosen one, that they get to have their question answered today, or they have to wait 6 months for the guru to answer their thing. Like that model just doesn't work that well anymore.
I've seen more and more of that, of like a perk of joining these low ticket memberships is your question might get answered on the weekly podcast episode. Like, how is that selling for anybody? So I love that you are doing the absolute opposite, because I have noticed that trend as well. And I've also noticed in what I've seen of you, how much high touch stuff you do with your people in your offers and outside of your paid offers. And like, I know how much that matters for my people, so I can imagine it's the same for yours, but you really spoil your people. They get a lot of you.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to we have a little now that we have a lot of these little one-liners we say inside of our world, but don't scale to fail.
Mhm.
And it's like everybody wants to skip steps these days, the magic answer, the shiny bullet type thing. And it's like they just want to go right to instant success. And it's like we're known for slow and steady.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, what's the next correct step? What's the next methodical thing? Which is not very attractive, not very sexy for a lot of people that want immediate results. But then what ends up happening though is you have those deeper connections, you have those relationships, and especially in again in this whiz bang world, it's like even if somebody for us because we have several like coaching programs, memberships, mastermind, you'd be amazed how many people like even are in our season and they exit our world, but then a couple months later or 6 months later they re-enter our
Mhm.
world. And it's because we didn't treat them like a number. We didn't treat them like a unit or a digit, or anything like that. We got to, as Melissa said, we got to know them. We have a deeper connection relationship. We know what's going on. And sometimes there is that moment that we part ways temporarily and people loop back into our world. And I think that's really key because I've said this a lot, but back when I used to own 8 real estate offices and had over 200 agents that worked for me, it's like it sounds great in a bubble in the moment, but it was a really intense big business, that we were running, and thousands and thousands of transactions a year, making millions of dollars, on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, not like over a course of period. And that sounds great, but at the end of the day, it was like the company could have been doing really well. We had all those units, but if an individual agent, if somebody didn't call them, they made no money at all. So they can be with the big company. And the interesting thing is at the end of the day, for all of it, it's like when I had that company, every agent that was successful, they didn't have to have 5,000 people on an email list or a bunch of social media followers. They had this little tiny black box on their desk. And when they opened it up, they had 50 business cards that they could put in it. And it was called a Rolodex. And like they would make multi six figures a year based on what was the contacts they had inside of that Rolodex. And somewhere along the line, we've been convinced that everybody is a lead. If you're breathing, if you opt in, and I know you started with talking about that, it's like we think everybody is a potential buyer. And then we get really caught up in like everybody that followed me, everybody that's on the email list, like they're a buyer, they're a buyer, they're a buyer. And it's like, no. In the real world, if you had a whole bunch of cars parked in your parking lot and none of them came into your business, they're called loiterers. They're taking up space so your actual buyers can't get into the parking spot to come into your business. But somehow we celebrate all of these people that aren't buyers that have just socially signaled they're willing to give their email for a free PDF download. But we haven't done the right things when it does come back to the audience, the message, the offer to attract a different quality person. Because not all leads are equal. So you can actually work with fewer people if you're actually working with the right people to begin with.
And Melissa, this kind of brings up a question I had tagged for you because of your background in like psychology and therapy and things like that. Like, how does your understanding of human behavior and stuff, or does it play into the way you guys view this in effective marketing, especially when someone's trying to move people in their audience from the free content to the paid offers?
Yeah, it plays a huge role. It's so interesting because, in the therapy world, I worked with all different types of people, all different walks of life, and people are people. But I will say, being in business and being an entrepreneur is probably one of the biggest, personal development exercises that we have to do. We have to put ourselves out there. We have to take risks. We have to do things sometimes that are a little bit uncomfortable. So, in this world of entrepreneurship and working with people, it's really all about, testing themselves, stretching yourself, doing things that are a little bit outside of the box, but also too doing things, in a way that still feels authentic and, right for you too. So we work, in coaching, on our coaching calls, we will talk strategies, but then also too, because we have these relationships with our members in the program, we know where they're coming from. They may still have, a 9-to-5 job and they're working on this, building their business. So their circumstances are going to be different, or they might be a mom with really young kids and they're working in chunks of time where they can do a little bit of work in the morning and then have a pocket of time in the afternoon. So it's like really meeting people with where they're at, and then also really working with people to work on some of those skill sets where they can put themselves out there more and learn things like how to sell and how to market themselves without feeling slimy or sleazy, like that used car salesman. A lot of it is like those mindset blocks that they have that, we grew up with. We had some sort of experience in our lifetime as a child or, a young adult, a sales experience that just left you feeling icky. And so that imprints on you and it affects the way that you move through the world. But it's breaking through those, beliefs, those limiting beliefs that hold us back, that we're actually, we are actually capable of doing this, but it's figuring out the way that we can do it that still is aligned with who we are as individuals too.
Do you have examples of like what that might end up looking like for any given person? I don't know, pick someone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm just even thinking about, I just was working with one of our clients and she's like that example of the mom with young kids. And so it's really for her, kids, she has to work around the school schedule with that. So really, managing her time and finding those chunks of time. So I introduced a concept to her called theme days, which really is like you have these theme days throughout your week where it's like, okay, I know on this day, I have a pocket of time that, these 2 hours where the kids are down for a nap. So I know that every Tuesday between this time and this time, I'm going to work on, business building activities. Like this will be the time that I'm reaching out to potential clients. I might be doing, individual email reach outs. I might be working on social media content. I might be planning my next, webinar launch, but whatever it is, it's a really concentrated period of time with that. And then on the sales side, and we talk a lot about that. And I know, Paul, with all of his experience with selling and stuff, and it's really kind of flipped the script with, selling. It's finding the method that makes sense for you, because for people with sales, they feel like they have to become like this different person. And it's really like selling, if you can really integrate it as part of who you are, it's sharing. If you aren't, sharing what it is that you do with the person that needs that help, you're being really selfish by not selling that to them, by not sharing it with them. So it's really shifting that mindset block and figure out ways to get through that you don't have to become this different person or this used car salesman to present your offers. It's actually, you're just sharing an opportunity. You're leading people to the next natural step in a very ethical way.
I wish more people could really like embody that. And I think it's just a process for some people, but when you really believe in what you do, man, it's so easy to talk about. Like, no, you actually have to be in this offer, not because I'm gross and slimy, but like, because I see what's possible for you and you need that, and I love what you were talking, just this specific example you gave for this mom, where Tuesdays between these hours you're working on, the examples you gave were marketing, business building activities. It wasn't you're scheduling random Instagram posts. It wasn't you are working on this thing no one's ever going to see. It's like you are spending intentional time with marketing that will get you results.
Exactly. Being intentional, and especially like when you only have a limited amount of time, you got to make that time count. So it's a lot of times, that's where people procrastinate and they do all the other stuff, the busy work. We've all been guilty of doing that. I know I have, but it's like, no, if I have 2 hours because, the rest of the time I'm busy, I'm going to make those 2 hours count. I'm going to be doing business building and activities that are actually going to move the needle. It might be the things that feel a little bit uncomfortable, that get me out of my comfort zone, but that's what's going to make the difference.
Man, so true. I also wanted to circle back to, the part you were talking about, Paul, of people who will give you money instead of just kind of sit there. And I know you two have a big focus on aligning your audience, your messaging, your offers, everything to attract people who will buy. Could you talk us through a little bit about what that alignment looks like?
Yeah. So a lot of people, they don't think about it this way, and I'm hoping that this might give some perspective. Is our ideal clients for all of us is typically actually not what we've been sold on within the internet marketing space. A lot of what gets regurgitated with the client avatar work and in bringing people through the ideal client exercise, it's good for marketing 101, just so you kind of hone in initially. But what ends up happening is people then focus more on, did my person buy a latte this morning? Do they drive this specific car? Do they have this specific job? Is that all those things going to actually make that person a buyer? And really, who are ideal? And typically, if you actually look at whoever's teaching us that, if you look at who bought their thing, they didn't play by that rule. So your actual ideal client is somebody that is willing to pay to have the problem fix that you solve. Now, that is a subset of the market when you do your avatar work. Now, the avatar work's great because that helps you with messaging. So if you're on a podcast that's like going to doulas, then you're going to talk to that doula crowd. And then if it's writers, 10 minutes later, like authors, you're going to shift your messaging and talk to them. You're still going to bring them into the same offer. You're just going to have different paths, different messaging that you're bringing in. So when you know that, then what it is, you start thinking differently, like, oh, okay, who are my buyers? And actually, what is the conversation that they're having? Because it's actually different than people that are just curious or interested in the topic. So, all of us, we go into, like, for instance, big communities, big Facebook groups. And let's just take the health niche as an example, just to give you like a broad scope. Now, if you go into the health niche and you're like, okay, if I'm in like online communities, the conversation that's happening inside of like the Peloton user group, okay, where people invested several $1,000s in their health for a stationary bike, is very different than people that are in the free healthy recipes Facebook group. There might be millions of people in that group, and you might go in there and do all your client avatar work, but now you're going to get a whole bunch of people that want free recipes and they want everything with a coupon, and they're not really buyers. So where we spend our space a lot of times, we think, oh, bigger room, better quality people. And I'm like, no, no, no. Let's rewind back and let's do this in the real world. This is where the real world experience comes in, and forget the online world, because a lot of us mess up because we do the right things typically in the real world, but then we don't take those social cues and bring it into the online world. So in the online world, we're like, oh, bigger is better, bigger list. Like, where's the crowd? What's the conversations? But if there was a $500 plate dinner in your town tonight and all the who's who that are there, that group that has a lot of money to spend are having different conversations than the free beef and beer, happy hour, get chicken wings for free and $2 Bud Lights at the corner bar. Okay. That, that's free and anybody can come in, they can get free. And, hey, it could be the same person. We can stop by the free and the head while we're heading over to the gala. But what it is, there's no qualifier there. There's no qualifier. There's no barrier. So a lot of people spend a lot of time, energy, and effort technically in the wrong spaces, talking to the wrong people that have not socially signaled that they're willing to spend money to get their problem fixed. There's a very key difference there. We would do it differently if we had a real world business. Oh, I would go to that networking event. Oh, I'm not going to bother going there because it doesn't have the right people. Oh yeah, I would pay money to go to that event. But then we don't see it the same way when we go online. And that social cue, maybe just a little insight, you might spend less time. But and also the second thing, really quick, in this category, a lot of us spend an overwhelming amount of time in groups and spaces that are our peers that will not pay. So we have a saying also, is that peers don't pay. So if you're hanging out all the time with people that see you as an equal, and you're like, oh no, but I'm on social media every day, I'm posting every day. It's like, yeah, you're hanging out with people that think like you're equal. They don't see you on a stage. They see you as an equal. You're sitting in the seats with them. They're not going to give you money. And a lot of us are accidentally spending time with an audience or a group of people that are actually like our cohort, or equals. So where is your people hanging out? And they have to see you as an expert. They have to see you, above the crowd. And a lot of people make a mistake doing that.
Yeah, I think they feel really uncomfortable doing that. It's still kind of uncomfortable for me to do that, but I like it takes a different level of like owning, your stuff and you are a leader to feel comfortable. And like that kind of made it click for me why so many people end up I see it all the time, talking to their peers when it doesn't make sense for them to do that. I loved what you said about qualifiers too. I hadn't looked at it that way. A lot of times when I hear people talking about like freebie seekers and stuff, it's with kind of like I don't even know, like an icky way of meaning it and saying it. But I like how you said it's a qualifier. The same person could be in both things, but you are just giving yourself the best possible chance of getting in front of the perfect fit people for you and what you do. I really love that way of looking at it. And I'll put you on the spot a little bit and bring up summits in this, because summits, at least the way I teach them, are a free ticket up front. Come one, come all, enjoy an awesome event. So and I know you guys speak at quite a bit of events. So like, where do you see that playing in with this idea?
So I'll give you a hybrid because interestingly, and I don't think you know this, but through the years, we have a small group of people that we coach and support, like on the marketing and sales end, that have actually been through your program. So we kept hearing, Krista, summit in a box, summit in a box. We're like, okay. You guys know about no, but we participate in a lot of summits. We get it. We understand marketing and sales. Like we're not reteaching or doing your thing or anything, but we're supporting them in like their funnels and other efforts and in launching and stuff. And then last year we were like, you know what, we're going to do our own summit. So instead of like reinventing the wheel, and we came in through Summit in a Box. I'm not sure if you're hyper aware of that or not. Last year, and we did our own summit. And our first summit out, we had several thousand people come through. We called it the Ad Summit, and that did incredibly well. But we've been on the speaking end. In the real world, we've been on a lot of stages. But in the past decade, we've been. It's very easily well over 100 different summits. I mean, just one person alone, we did 10 summits with about a decade ago. So we have a lot of experience in with that. Now, the cool thing, what I love about how you teach the summit model, because it's what we do in our launches and our challenges and things that we do, is the hybrid model. So you are bringing people in free. And just because somebody comes in free doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a buyer. That's just the offer that you presented them, right? So, and then on the back end, when you have that upgrade, and all of us on our thank you pages of any type of free offer, we should have a paid upgrade immediately, because we're pre-assuming that nobody is a buyer that gets an opt-in. And that is not true. As a consumer in the real world, all of us, to be a consumer in the real world means we just paid for a product or service. In this online world, a consumer is everybody. They're consuming content. But no. The word consumer in the real world, because otherwise it's called theft. So it's like, so we, as a consumer in the real world, that means we bought a product or service and we're consuming it. So we think this human being that buys everything in their world that they consume, the moment that they go online, that they only want everything for free. So that's a bad assumption. And then you place that person in that free zone. That's our friend zone. We call it the free zone, because you just nurture them forever and never make an offer. So what ends up happening is they buy other things from other people along the way. So a lot of times the reason why these people are all freebie seekers on your list is because you never actually had the guts to make them an offer. And a lot of us should do it a lot sooner than later. Now, what I would say is it comes into that audience selection, and it also comes into the hook and like the angle of your summit. Is that hook, that angle of your summit, is it bringing in freebie seekers, or is it bringing in people that are higher quality? And I'll give you the example. Is our challenge that we do is called the Ads Challenge. The summit that we did was called the Ads Summit. Now that sounds really simple because we help people with Facebook ads and SEO and all the digital marketing things. We have a team of coaches that help out people. But if we put out a summit that was like, let us help you build your organic traffic, we'll get way more people in it. But organic traffic means it's a qualifier. The topic itself, the hook, the messaging is saying this is for everybody and anybody. So it does get a bigger audience. But the moment that I select and I make a decision to do the Ads Summit or the Ads Challenge, now I'm only talking to people that have socially signaled that they're willing to invest money in growing their business. So that is very intentional. So even though we do a free summit or a free challenge, we are bringing buyers into the challenge because they are financially investing in themselves and in their business. Just like if I went in and did freebies to the people that were in the Peloton group, well, those people are buyers. They might not have bought my thing yet, but they spent $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 on a stationary bike. They are a buyer. I'm hoping this makes sense. So your hook and your angle that you're using, you could do a topic that you might get fewer people, but it's going to the people that have financially invested in themselves, because most likely the purchase with you is not the first purchase they made in the problem that they're fixing. So they most likely bought other products and services before they come into your world.
I love it so much. Anyone who has listened to this podcast or listened to me anywhere knows I am just sitting here with a big old smile on my face because Paul's talking about positioning and I didn't have to do it. So thanks, Paul. That is so exactly right. Yeah, like messaging and all of that, building the right audience. I know that's your thing, and that makes so much sense. Where, yeah, you're calling in more people than you would for a paid offer, but you are being so specific as you possibly can about who you're calling in, and other people will come, and that's okay. But like then we have the qualifiers, and we have other offers, and it works. So that was really cool to hear your perspective on that. And so I think like that kind of tells me that that's what you think makes summits move the needle for the host, because you can attract so many of the right people It's not like a short amount of time overall because the project is pretty big. But in the grand scheme of online marketing, with how long it can take to get thousands of people on your email list, it is pretty darn quick.
And it's a relationship building too, because those people too, in that moment, they might not have taken the offer immediate from the summit. But I know, even from the summit that we just did, the long-term, things that happened afterwards, we got invited to other places where we could present. We got some podcast interviews, through people that came in through the summit. We actually had some clients come through later on down the line too. So we look at it kind of multidimensional, like, in the moment, and then long-term too. We're always looking long-term.
Yeah, we even had a couple people come into our mastermind that were speakers, as well as a couple of people that came into our coaching program that were speakers.
Yeah.
So not just the people that came through as the end user, but also the speakers of us hosting the summit, saw us and knew that we could even help improve their businesses as well.
I love that. I think it's so hard for people to imagine those longer term wins that come from hosting a summit. Yeah. So typically when I'm talking to people, I'm just talking about the short term, but it does not end there. It's really cool to hear those examples from you. I wanted to circle back to one other thing we kind of briefly touched on before, which is like people feeling confident selling their stuff, talking about their stuff. And I think a lot of our listeners are at that stage where they know their stuff works. They get results for the people that they have, but they struggle with that marketing and sales piece. And I know you guys are so good at that. Like, what would you say is the mindset shift that needs to happen for someone to go from being good at what they do to being good at selling what they do?
I think one of the first things I would say is definitely, a lot of times people get hung up on the stuff that they're selling. Like, what are the deliverables? What are the features? What are the things? And then they get hung up. Is this even enough to put in the offer? So really, when you're crafting the offer too, I look at it, because one of the things that I do in our coaching program is I do a lot of reviews, and I look at a lot of sales pages, and I look at a lot of offers to help craft the offer. But one of the things is just getting really crystal clear on the offer itself, with not only just the things are great, but it's more about like the benefits. Like, why is this important? To get really crystal clear on that, really crystal clear on the transformation, because then when you can really convey, it's not just about like the modules, the PDFs, the training videos, but it's like, what are these actually going to do for you? And how is this going to help you? How is this going to help you move the needle? And getting really crystal clear on the transformation, that's going to give you even more confidence in really, again, coming back to, selling is sharing. It's really sharing, the next natural step. And that's how we look at, in that sales process. When you bring someone in, whatever launch vehicle it is, whether it's a summit, whether it's a traditional launch, whether it's an email launch, you're taking people through a process, and you're helping them along the way with quick wins along the way. You're showing them what's possible. You're showing them opportunities. You're not solving all the problems in that launch vehicle, but you're kind of giving them little bits. And then the next natural step, which is just sharing the transformation of what your offer provides. So if you can get really clear on that, that's going to help you with that confidence piece of actually talking more about your offer. And the selling, just it's not really, you're not doing anything different. You're just saying, hey, this is the next natural step. It's just the next phase in talking about the offer itself.
Yeah, and if I can follow through on that, because this was where my background in real estate, helping people that were not salespeople, they just wanted to show houses to people, and being excited about that. And their real estate agent didn't do much work, and they made a lot of money. And so I've taught tens of thousands of salespeople over the last 3 decades of my life. And most people in general have some negative anchoring when you say marketing and sales. And it's first coming back, like, what's the root of that? And also looking at, because a lot of times people will get on a summit, they'll get on a challenge or a webinar, and they see the teaching part as the serving part, as the sharing part. And they'll typically take their time. Typically they'll overteach, and that actually hurts the sale. But they normally over embellish, and they love that part of it. And then there's this mental shift that happens, that they think like, oh, now I'm taking from everybody the moment that I present my offer. And what you have to understand is that sales is actually a process, not a point in time. So the entire summit, the entire launch, the entire webinar, even when you believe you are teaching, you are actually selling in that moment. Everything that you're doing, whether you believe it or not, is a persuasion vehicle. You're on social media, you're in emails, you're doing copy, you're meeting people face to face. You are selling the entire time. Now, if you're not a good communicator, you are unselling yourself and your product and service. So where you do yourself a disservice, and this is where the mental shift has to happen. When you're in your summit, where we see people do is they're like this, and they're just talking normal and they're normal pacing. And then the moment they go to present their offer, they're a little bit insecure and they get a little bit of voice cracks and they go a little bit quicker and they just want to get this over in 3 minutes and they want to get, well, everybody else picks up on the nonverbal. And that's actually what you're getting picked up. And this is what you want to think about. And this is the mindset that we have to shift. If you believe in that 1 hour webinar, that you actually are going to change somebody's life, or during that 5-day challenge or that 3-day summit, that their life is truly going to be changed inside of that little tiny moment because you then decided not to serve, and that's the selling part properly, you just did all of those people a disservice. You're leaving that webinar making them believe they can get the transformation that you promised. And if you allow that to happen by you not being a better communicator, by leaning in and actually giving your offer, your opportunity enough breath for you to actually present it properly and fully with a normal pacing. So when the moment that you make that offer, your pacing should be the exact same. Your voice quality should be the exact same of when you're presenting the teaching parts of your summit, of your offer. If it shifts at all, that's something that we have to change internally, because you will actually, by you being a better communicator and by being more confident and comfortable during that period of time, you'll have more people that'll say yes, and then you will have the ability to give more of an impact to those individuals versus them leaving your webinar, leaving your Challenger Summit, thinking that everything you covered over that period of time, that they can now fix their problem. And they can't. They can't. Transformation takes time.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be a feedback loop. There needs to be spaced out support, training, community, whatever those extra elements are, because otherwise they're going to fail. So we really need to lean in and really own that I am serving my people better by becoming a better communicator, and knowing that if I can actually convey and persuade in an ethical way, and we're all about guiding people into an informed buying, ethical buying decision. So this is not about slimy stuff. This is about guiding people. They're the ones that's going to say yes, but you're guiding them into that moment, and they are the ones saying yes to themselves. This time's going to be different. This time I'm going to do it. This time I'm going to go through it. And I believe you're the right person, and this is the right mechanism to do it with. And you're going to make a better impact and serve more people. If you don't, we just got to get the mental junk, something there that's blocking you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just becomes muscle memory. So we need to get you doing it the right way a few times, and then you're not even going to think about it anymore. So, but getting people to that point. Sorry, I'm very passionate about this part. So
No, I love this so much because like I have gone through this shift, and we just ran a summit, and I have had 4 people since then come to me and say, thank you so much for the way you sold, for the way you served me through selling. Like some of them, those were their exact words. Sometimes I said it in a different way, but people want to like have the ball in their court to make the decision, but feel like you are truly there in their on their side, supporting them through it, seeing their potential and wanting the best for them. And that's why you're presenting this offer. Like they feel that, and they literally say, thank you that I gave you lots of money. Like it's so cool to be able for them to see that potential in themselves and to be able to build that level of trust with them over time. And you're right. If I would have been like, oh my gosh, okay, guys, I'm going to pitch you and I'm really sorry, but let me just get through really fast. That wouldn't have happened, but I totally used to do it. And I still see people do it a lot. And I think that's where I want to end this, because that is such a powerful shift. And I know that's something you can help people with, and I want them to get your help. So first of all, thank you for all of this, but also can you talk a little bit about where people can go to learn more about you and what you offer, and maybe the best first step for them to kind of get into that world a little bit more?
Well, our main program that we have is Adaptive Marketing Program. They can go to adaptivemarketingprogram.com to check that out. And what that is just it's us, it's our team of coaches, and we help with all aspects of marketing, everything from the organic side to the paid ad side. We have a team of coaches. There's 13 of us now, 13 coaches, and we have coaches 5 days a week, lots of resources. And really, again, the way that we do our coaching program is we do deeper with fewer. So it's a those small group coaching sessions. Our coaches will get to know you and get to know a little bit about your business. And we work individually with people on what they're working on and meet people with where they're at. So that's one of the main ways if people are interested in checking that out. And for some of the things that we talked about today, having to do with like audience and bringing the right people in, we do have a great resource. It's influenceworkshop.com, and that's influenced with a D, workshop.com. And that is really where it'll take you through one of our processes of really how to hone in on your audience. We have a whole process that, we take you through as far as like honing on your audience, knowing, how it aligns with your messaging, and then how that relates to the offer. So that's a workshop that you can go through too.
Sounds amazing. I will link to all that in the show notes. But if you're listening and this resonated with you, if this caught your attention, I talk to a lot of people, I interview a lot of people. These two are like the next level. It's not just selling you one little strategy that they promise is going to change your entire life. It is a much more holistic, sustainable approach that they have. And they have so much more experience than the typical person in business who is like, oh, I did that myself for 3 months and now I'm going to teach you how to do it. You heard the intro and how much experience they have. So I just really encourage you to check it out. Thank you so much, Paul and Melissa, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. For show notes and resources mentioned in this episode, you can head to the link in the episode description wherever you're listening, and we'll have it all for you there. And now go out and take action to plan, strategize, and launch your high converting virtual summit.